Welcome. My name is Terryl Humphrey, the founder of the Phase Knowledge Podcast, and I've hosted over 894 podcast episodes. And today we're going to talk about why doing the work is so important. If you don't have your pen, if you don't have your notebook, go ahead and get your pen and notebook because today we are talking about the importance of doing the work, and it only comes from you understanding the commitment that you have to make before the work is done. And so when the work is done, you are doing the work every single day. So let's go ahead and get it started. First thing first, identify the work. Identify the work. In other words, if you're working blindlessly, then you're not really working towards a plan, towards a goal. Oh, let me scoot over just a little bit. All right, there we go. So the reason why I say this is because there's so many. As a matter of fact, let me just scoot this over. There we go. All right, cool. There's so many different things that can happen in life, and as it's happening in life, doing the work has to be the focus. As I just started this podcast episode, live stream conversation, I literally had to adjust my camera. When you do the work, you see the small things that has to be worked on and improved, but it's only improving if you are able to identify what work you are doing. If I'm doing a podcast, the camera has to be right. The microphone has to be right. The lives has to be right. So many different things has to come into consideration. Nonetheless, as it's coming into consideration, there's so many different things that I have, as a business owner, have to learn how to do every single day. Doing the work consists of showing up daily. And by daily, you got a calendar right here, right? You got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. If you show up Sunday but don't show up Monday, you're not doing the work. If you show up Sunday but show up Thursday, what about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Every day you are doing work, you have to show up. In other words, every day you are working on your business, you have to show up. Every day you show up, you are doing the work. And one thing that I've learned, while being on the journey of podcasting, building a podcast production business, doing a 90-day challenge so many different times, are the lessons that I've learned have never left me. I might forget them, but they never left me, because when I remember certain things, I'm like, oh, I remembered this back then. This was important back then. Yet when I got introduced to it, it was like really like an advanced knowledge, advanced education. Why am I saying this? Doing the work will lead you to better opportunities, but not doing the work will not lead you to get educated. Getting educated is so important, and I recently discovered this. Hold on, let's just say this is a calendar. Education comes from school and or experience. And by school, I'm talking about trade schools. I'm talking about courses where you can go get certifications. I'm talking about different various ways that you can learn something new. In addition to that, you have to do the work. You see, showing up is part number one. But when you show up without a plan, you're not working on the plan because you're not doing the work. I had to recognize, hold on, let me come back to the screen. I, as a startup business owner, has to recognize that it's something that I'm missing, something that I'm not fully understanding. The thing that I'm not understanding is what makes a podcast production business. One is showing up every day. Two is helping others with their podcast. Three is literally speaking about everything that you're doing and showcasing it to other people. I started to recognize that podcast production is more than a conversation. It can literally be a business around it. I often get the question of, how do you monetize for your podcast? How do you make money from it? And I'm like, well, that's a great question. The first thing people think of are advertisement, sponsorship, affiliates, all these different things. Yes, you can get monetized like that. I haven't got monetized like that because that's a whole different business model. That's a whole different strategy that I would have to implement. And by me being a startup, I don't need to be stretched too thin. I need to be really focused on a particular thing. So when I discovered that doing the work helps you focus because it leads you to better opportunities, doing the work helps you show up every single day. You never know what opportunity is going to be created. You never know what door is going to be open. You never know the luck that you're going to create from you doing the work. You doing the work is you following a process. You doing the work is you following the system. You doing the work is you growing a better understanding. You see, you can't understand if you're not doing the work. When I started to do the work, I started to learn about entrepreneurship. When I started to do the work, I started to go to different programs. Shout out to Action Zone. They help veterans start their business from ideal concept to monetizing it. And when I went through this program, I went through it to learn about the business, to learn about business in general. It doesn't matter the industry. What matters is that you understand the business that you're doing. Doing the work has a price. Doing the work has a cost. Yeah, doing work has a cost because you literally have to pay the price every single day. You see, the ones who show up every single day are the ones who makes a difference. The ones who show up every day are the ones who are literally focused on their goals. Doing the work only comes from commitment. When you are committed to a goal, you will accomplish that goal. You see, sometimes it just takes time for you to accomplish that goal. But when you put that time into yourself, you are literally doing the work. You see, doing the work pays off. Doing the work educates you. Doing the work gives you the experience because it's something that will help you understand what you are doing. When I start to understand, like, man, I think I got to figure it out. I had to change my business model so many different times. And in fact, yesterday, I changed it. But this time when I changed it, I got the feedback that I was looking for. Typically, when I share what I'm doing, people be like, I don't understand what you're doing. Like, I don't understand what you do. I don't understand the business that you're in. So now I have to figure out how to reword it differently, how to communicate it differently. And I've been figuring this out for so long based on all the programs I'm going to, the education I'm going to. Shout out to Spartan Incubator. I'm in that program now. Nonetheless, you really have to understand that when you do the work, check this out, you are getting educated. Hold on. Let me come back to the screen. Let me come back to the screen. When you do the work, that equals education / experience. Why? Because you never know what you're going to discover. You never know who you're going to meet, and you never know the information is going to help you do the work more effectively. I learned this terminology a while ago. It was effectively and efficiently. So that was like you have to be efficient before you become effective. When you become efficient, you become effective because the efficiency has improved. And I'm like, that's different. That's different. Appreciate y'all for coming in. I think that's Sid. What it do, man? I think that's Sid. I can't see that far. And so when I started to understand, like, I'm like, hold on, there's a process behind this. Doing the work consists of you actually doing the work. I want to look up the word efficiency right quick. Efficiency and effective. Hold on. I want to look that up because that is a powerful word. Efficiency. EFFI. Hold on. Efficiency. All right, cool. Efficiency is the ability to maximize output, performance, or production while minimizing input, waste, expense. Oh man, I'm listening to this book and it says something about it's a book about systems, like systems for business. And they literally said something about if you are in sales or you're in business and you increase the amount of things that you're doing, you're increasing your input. When you increase the things that you're doing, what come after that will increase as well. That is called the output. When the output increases from the input increases the output. And so if it's to read this is perfect timing. So let's just say efficiency in business. All right, cool. There we go. Efficiency in business, the measure of how effectively a company utilizes resources. So in other words, when you have different things that you're doing to work with, let's just say my podcast production business. My biggest thing was that I was trying to figure out what I'm doing and then who I'm serving and how to make money from it. It's not the fact that, well, it is the fact that I didn't understand business. It's more so as I'm producing podcast episodes, I'm just talking, I'm communicating, I'm learning. Yeah, I'm like, well, how do I apply that to business? Now, how do I make money from that? When I start to become more efficient, hold on, check this out. Shout out to that book, because that book just gave me a different perspective. So when I focus on, let's just say focus on the steps, I have to focus on what's working and what's not working. Why? Because when I focus on what's working, I'm becoming more efficient. When I become more efficient, the input, the work that's been that's involved in the work, as I'm doing the work, it becomes more effective because I now have a steps to follow. Now I have a system to follow. Now I have a process to follow. You see, doing the work creates a routine. Hold on. Doing the work creates a routine. You never know what you're going to do until you do it consistently. Okay, I give you a prime example. Hold on. When I played football back in high school, and it was off season, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sometimes Saturday, get Sunday off. At a specific time, we would go and train and practice for 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours. During this time, we are lifting weights, we are running plays, we are practicing the plays, we are getting coached, we're doing these different things. What has happened? It became a routine. Now, just imagine this. Okay, hold on. Let me come back to the screen. Okay. Just imagine this. 4 years of doing that same routine, 4 years of practicing, let's just say 4 years of practice. Because if you're an athlete in any sport, you have to practice. 4 years of practicing. 4 years of practicing. You have a routine. It's not just a routine anymore. It's literally like a habit. Like you get up at this certain time, you go train, you go practice, do all these different things. And it's like, well, when I go to the Marine Corps, we do the same exact thing. But this time we're not learning about plays. We're not learning about formations. We're not learning about what the opposing team is doing. This time, we are strategically planning as a team, and there's so many different things that we have to do. We have to hike. We have to train. We have to get educated. We have to take classes or courses. You see, that routine might look different, but that routine is the same thing that you have to do in business. Oh, my goodness. Hold on. Let me come back to the screen. When you do the work, you are doing the work in a routine. The routine that you have established for yourself is the routine that's going to help you stay consistent. As it's helping you stay consistent, the work that you're doing will become more efficient. And to be more efficient is that it has to be effective while you're doing the work. Like you have to follow the steps efficiently before you become effective. When you become effective, it's because of the system or the steps that you're following every single day. Hold on. Hold on. It's the work that matters. People often say, I want to be this. I want to be a podcaster. I want to be a business owner. I want to be a content creator. I want to be all these different things. But the work that goes into everything that you're doing has to be a consideration because it takes time, takes effort, and energy. If you want to do the work, you have to put time, effort, and energy in everything that you're doing. Because when you have a routine, the routine that you have established will help you do the work. Hold on. So when you do the work, 4 years of practice routine, it takes time, effort, and energy. When you invest time, effort, and energy into everything that you're doing, the work will still be overwhelming, will still be a lot. yet it will be a process behind everything that you're doing. You're no longer guessing. We went to an event yesterday and it was phenomenal. Event. Shout out to the Spartan Incubator. It was an alumni program, alumni event for alumni. When we went there before the event, I'm like, all right, cool. I need to get this pitch down because I've been trying to figure out my pitch for the last for so long. I've changed it so many different times. And I'm writing it down, I'm asking people, talking to people, communicating with people. And what I discovered is that, shout out to my wife as well, when I was explaining what I was doing, it sounded too complicated. And I'm like, well, how do you make it complicated? She was like, have you ever thought about making it simple? I'm like, no, I ain't thought about that. Please help me. You see, when you do the work, you forget how simple it has to be. When you do the work, you forget to recognize that it doesn't have to be overcomplicated. It just has to make sense to everyone who's willing to listen. When people are willing to listen to the work that you're doing, is the way you pitch yourself. But it's not everything that you talk about. It's the small description that will get people interested. When people are interested in what you're doing, they are making the time to learn about what you're doing. And that was my biggest challenge. So I'm like, man, how can I make this a business? Like, I'm having all these different podcasts. I'm having a lot of conversations. Like, how do you make money from it? I don't even know. What I recognize, because it's one of the questions that I often get. One of the other questions that I often get. The first one is, what do you do? Next one is, how do you make money? Next one is, who are your customers? Like, it's like a cycle. Like, I keep getting asked the same question. I digress. When I started to really understand, in fact, this morning I had like a thought process that came across my mind. I was like, oh, that's it. That's exactly what I wanted to do. The community aspect of it is good. It's great. It's phenomenal. But what I learned over the years is that if you're trying to build community, no, not trying to be community. Like, community is my goal. In addition to that, the way I'm going to be making money is doing a done-for-you service to help established business owners build their brand through podcasting. I'm going to offer this service to them for a fee. And for my community over here, it'll be free education, courses, and so on and so forth. When I started to recognize the difference between the two made a difference. Why? Because the work is different for both sides. I saw this video. Shout out to Alex Rose. He got to talking about what he got talking about. Like, he said that building the community aspect of it take a lot of money. And when you just have a product that you can sell to people who can afford it, once you focus on that, to take the resources and provide it here. When I started to really understand that, I'm like, how do you do that? Of course, I don't have access to him to ask him. Nonetheless, I'm still trying to figure it out. And I figured it out this morning. Over here with my community, let me draw this out. This would be a good demonstration. Over here with my community, this will be education. This will be free content. This will be books. This will be documentaries. ENT. I think I spelled documentaries right. This will be podcast. All right, so there's one side. The next side will be the service that we offer, done for you. Done for you offer. And in this offer, it saves time for established business owners, grow their brand, grow brand, remove the work, And last but not least, attract more customers. So this right here W will be for money. This right here will be what? Less than $100. Less than $99. Let's say $97. Less than 90. Less than 90. Yeah, hold on. Less than $97 or something like that. What I'm doing, what I just recognized is that if I offer a service, hold on. If I offer a service that's similar to the same exact service that we provide for Failures Knowledge Podcast, I can literally have a business around established business owners who want to grow their brand, but they have no idea how to establish it. When I started to recognize that doing the work, you have to learn the steps to follow. The steps to follow will help you identify the problem that you would like to solve. That's the next point we're going to hit on. Is that you have to identify, you have to solve one problem. You have to solve one problem. Not multiple problems, not 20 problems, not 40 problems. One problem can be solved, especially speaking from my perspective, since I'm starting out. One problem I need to focus on. And when I discovered this the other day, I was like, oh, that's it. That was what I was looking for this entire time. And as I'm looking for it, I'm literally learning how to communicate it, how to present it. And shout out to Neo Davis. He always say it has to be, it has to work or it has to work. When you identify the problem that has to be solved, it has to be work because you're the one that's solving the problem. So when I was trying to figure out like how to go about doing it, doing the work is not the challenge. It's documenting the work that makes it overwhelming. Because now you have to look at everything and see what's working, what's not working, and fix what's not working. So that way what's working can be more efficient. Hold on. Just so I can read the definition again. Efficient means is a measure of efficiency in business is the measure of how effectively a company utilizes resources. So when a company effectively utilizes time, they are understanding the work that they are doing. When they understand the work that they're doing, they are solving the problem consistently. It blew my mind when I started to pitch it and people was like, I actually need that. Man, I've been thinking about this for some time, but I never knew how to do it. I'm like, there's no way. There's no way. There is a way. Doing the work helps you focus on the problem that you can solve. You have to communicate the problem efficiently, consistently, daily. Why? Because you have to communicate. In other words, you have to market yourself so people can hear you, so people can learn about you, so people can literally connect with your business. When people connect with you, they're connecting with the problem that you're solving. That blew my mind. Oh my goodness. That blew my mind because it was something I was looking for the last half a decade. As I started to discover it, I'm like, I need to showcase this more. I need to push this out more. I need to talk about this more. And now that I'm doing the 90-day challenge again, I literally need to talk about it every single day and put it out there because my biggest thing was trying to figure out what am I putting out? Like, what problem am I solving? When I started to focus on the problem, there's a book called Focus on the Problem, Not the Solution. I listened to it and it's like, well, how can I apply that for my business? Shout out to, his name is Bert. Shout out to the Spark Incubator. And they say you got to focus on the problem. I'm like, what problem what problem is that? When you identify the problem that you're solving, solve that problem consistently. Hold on. Let me come back to the screen. Let me come back because that was good. When you identify the problem that you would like to solve that problem consistently. Don't add another problem on top of your problem. Now you have multiple problems that you're solving. In business, when you solve one problem, what I'm learning, when you solve one problem, you can solve that problem consistently. And it blew my mind. I'm like, how are all these other people able to have multiple different businesses? And then you start to learn a lot of people don't even know about business. You know what I mean? It is what it is. But it's not the fact that they don't know anything about business. I just have a different perspective of business now. And now that I'm implementing everything that I'm doing, the results that I'm going to create from the new perspective will help me understand everything that I'm doing consistently. So I understand what I'm doing. I'm executing on it. Now it's just time for the results to start to come in. Newsflash. The results have already started to come in. I just didn't recognize it was the results I was looking for. What I recognized was that I'm able to do podcasts. I'm able to have conversations. I'm able to help people with their podcasts. In addition to that, I literally didn't know I was solving a problem. The problem that you're solving is the problem that you're already doing for yourself, that you're already solving for yourself. But it took me a long time to recognize what problem I was solving for myself. As I started to solve it for myself, I started to see the returns come back. I talked about inputs and output. The more you put out, the more you receive. The more you put out, the more you receive. The more you put out, the more you receive. Why? Because when you do the work, you have to do the work consistently. People are reaching out to get on Deep Face on this podcast because of the consistency. Not because I post every now and then, but it's because of the consistency. When it was working, I'm like, man, it's working. People are actually reaching out. But then when it stopped working, I stopped doing the work. I stopped doing the work because I was trying to figure out what problem I was solving. When I picked it back up, I literally didn't have to figure out how to stay more consistent. I just became more consistent because I already knew how to. Then just imagine, I'm like, ooh, hold on. I know I'm in the podcasting space, creator space, but I just don't want to focus on creators. Shout out to I had a mentor have a mentor, and he was like, entrepreneurs don't have money. Like small startups don't have money. I'm like, what you mean? He was like, you have to go to people who have the money. And I'm like, where you find them at? It was like, that's where you got to find out. Hold on. Small business owners do not have the money, which means they communicate differently. Communicate differently. And when they communicate differently, guess what? Check this out. You're solving, a different problem. So this whole time, let me come back to the screen. All right, cool. This whole time, I'm like, man, what is going on? I think I got it, but I'm not able to make the revenue I'm looking to make right now. So now I had to pivot, change, update, do all these different things. Now it's like, oh, that's why, because they still trying to figure it out. Small business owners are still trying to figure it out. So for me to go and serve them, I would have to have patience, a lot of patience. I'm very patient, but the thing about creators is that creators are still figuring out what business that they are in. At least I am. At least I'm a starter speaker for myself. But what if I flip it? What if I were to go to people who already know what they're doing? They have the customer base. In the terminology that they use, they are dinosaur when it comes to technology. They don't understand the new social media, AI, and all these different things. What if I were to go to people who already understands business, who are already doing business, who are already profitable in business. What if I just flip sides and go to the people who don't understand what I had to offer? And I was in this group, and when I was in this group, it was what is called? It was a lending group when I was learning about like real estate and all these different things. In this group, it was other lenders. Like the way that they talked about it was other people doing the same exact thing. So I was confused. I'm like, well, it's a community, yeah, but everybody's the same. Like everybody's literally selling the same exact thing. How do you make what the best? How do you make a business from this? And it wasn't until people start to challenge themselves. Oh, no, not challenge themselves. I start to question, like, that don't even make sense. I had a call with my buddy. His name is my buddy in real estate. And I had a call with him, and he was like, a lot of people that's in the group try to sell the people that's in the group. We're in the same group. We're doing the same thing. And I'm like, I always thought about that. Like, it never made sense to me that you do that in the same group. And I'm like, well, where do you go and get your customers at? And he was like, outside the group. When you're the only one talking about doing what you're doing. And it blew my mind. Because the problem that I started to solve became unique based off the room that I'm in. I don't need to go to podcasting events. There are a lot of podcasters talking about podcasting. But what if I switch up the scenery, go to a different location where I'm the only podcast production company there, and we have established business owners build their brand through podcasting? What if I go to this room, I'm the only person there, and people tell me, hey, I've been thinking about launching my podcast, but I don't know where to start. I've always thought about doing it, but people tell me I should do it, and I just want to do it to give education and educate others. Wait, hold on. When you go to the creator room, same language. Podcasting, Instagram, social media, all these different things. They understand how to build a brand. But the people who don't know how to build a brand are the ones who are good at business. The ones who are good in business need a brand, but the ones who have a brand are not good in business. Oh, man, it blew my mind because it gave me a new perspective. It gave me a new perspective. Now I understand the problem I'm solving because I'm only solving one problem, and the one problem I'm solving is helping established business owners build their brand through podcasting. Last point we're going to talk about before we go ahead and get up out of here. Last point. Hold on. This goes back to the topic of the day. Do the work. But this then, the last point number 3, when you do the work, hold on, let me make sure. Okay. When you do the work consistently. And hold on. I thought I did this enough, but I didn't. All right, cool. So when you work consistently, you are showing up every single day. I talked about this earlier as far as like showing up. In fact, let me show you. Let me just show you. I talked about this. Not right there. Not right there. Right here. Identify the work showing up daily. Oh, so that's the same point. So instead of me talking about the same point, instead of work consistently, constantly improve. Point number 3, constantly improve. And by improving, I'm saying, all right, so cool. This right here, let's just say this is a system. System got all kinds of stuff. System. This system has to be the focus of your business. As it's the focus, you have to improve daily. And my biggest thing while learning about business is looking at the data every single day. I'm literally asking, like, how do you know what's working and what's not working? That was like, man, we look at the data. I'm like, why do you look at the data? That was like, the data tell the story. I'm like, what does that even mean? I was like, until you learn how to read your data, you don't understand the business that you're in. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, listen, when you are able to look at your data, let's say numbers, information, followers, subscribers, number of podcasts, number of established business owners you've helped, amount of revenue. Like when you look at the numbers tells the story. There's a book called CRM or Die. Numbers tells the story. When you are able to look at the numbers tell the story. I did a podcast a couple days ago and it published. I did a podcast 2 weeks ago and it published last week. This video is performing well. It's performing well beyond the other ones. Excuse me. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, why is this working? Hold on. I'm looking at it and I'm questioning, why is this working? Why are so many different people watching this video? What happened? Like what happened? I'm trying to literally understand and break it down, not just from like the if you look at YouTube, not just from the front facing of it, but like the YouTube thumbnail, everything that goes behind putting this video together. What happened? And I'm asking what happened so I can do it again. And as I'm looking at it, numbers tell the story. It's saying that it's working. Whatever I did in this video is working. And it's around a financial video, but even then, finances alone would not make the video perform how it's performing if it's not properly designed, if it's not properly packaged. And so, hold on. Let me come back to the screen. If it's not properly packaged, in other words, if you don't have a good thumbnail, if you don't have a title, description, all these different things, like that's really important. And so when I'm trying to figure out what's working and why it's working, I'm not able to pinpoint it right then and there. So what I do, I go to ChatGPT, I said, why is this performing well? And I still have to do research on it. Nonetheless, I'm going to explain my takeaway from it so far. The package, let's just say thumbnail, YouTube, thumbnail. Let's just say stick person, topic. Okay. Then you got title. Description. Editing. Like you literally have to edit, because if it's not, you know what I mean? Editing. I'm going to do this right here. Play button and scissors. I think that says, yeah, editing, publishing, posting. I'm going to put posting. And like you got all these different layers that goes into making a video. You got all these different things that goes into making a video. And when it's working, I'm like, why is it working? When it's not working, I'm like, why is it not working? Because I'm trying to get to a point where it can work consistently. When as I started to notice that it's working, I'm like, I got to keep improving. Not keep changing. I have to keep improving. The next video has to be the next one. But see, the challenge with that is that if I'm striving to be better than the last one, I'm going to be overwhelmed. Nonetheless, what if I just focus on improving? Focus on the delivery. Focus on the psychology of the video. Focus on what goes on behind the scenes. People only see the video. On the contrary, they don't see the work that goes into making the video what it is. So then that's when I recognize, I'm like, oh, I think I figured it out. It's not the fact, the topic is important, but everything after that is even more important. And I'm like, that's the business that I'm in. That's the business that I'm in because that's the business that I've been trying to do for so long. We have established business owners build their brand through podcasting. In order for your brand to be built through podcasting, it has to go through a system. It has to go through steps. It has to go through a process. It has to go through the back end so the back end can let the front end shine. The input increases the output when the output is the focus of the input. In other words, the more you do, the more you get in return. That was my biggest thing. Since I know what I'm doing now, and I started to show the behind the scenes, and I talked about the journey, talk about what it takes to literally go from point A to point B from having a podcast production company. I'm my own case study. Why not make it work for me so I can just show proof that it works if you follow the system? As a matter of fact, you don't even have to do it. We give you peace of mind because we do it for you. You see, it's so many different things that comes on to podcasting, content creation, building a brand. Yet building a brand is not the focus if you already an established business owner. An established business owner is just focused on running the business. Hold on. Now, doing the work is so important. It's so critical. Because since, like I mentioned earlier, I'm my own case study. If I prove that it works, when I prove it works, other people can just literally see the numbers. The numbers tell the story because the story is what comes from the data. The data is what people look at, but the behind the scenes is what people don't pay attention to. But what if you start to not even learn it, but what if you start to identify why this is important? This is important. What is this? Podcast production is so important because you never know the people that you're going to reach. But when you reach them, it's because of what went in, like it's because of the process that went into it. So never forget and never be worried about doing the work. Doing the work will pay off, but you have to do it when you're not getting paid. I've been doing podcasting for the last half a decade, and I haven't got paid that much. In fact, I haven't got paid hardly anything. But what I have done is I developed systems, I developed processes, I developed steps, I developed a blueprint. Yes, I might not got paid last half a decade, but what about the next decade? What about the next half decade? What about the next following decade, next couple of years? What if I'm profitable from the last decade that I've learned the skill, that I created the steps, that I followed the system, that I have the blueprint, I have the plan, and I give you peace of mind? You see, you never know what you're doing until you do it. Then when you do it, you're doing the work. So let me know in the comments your biggest takeaway why doing the work is so important and how you're going to start doing the work for yourself. Let me know your biggest takeaway in the comments, and I would love to read it. Oh, snap. In closing. So to recap, this is what we talked about today. We talked about some great things around doing the work. Doing the work is so important because you have to do it consistently. Point number one is that we talked about identify the work. When you show up daily, you are showing up doing the work consistently. And when you identify the work, do it every single day. The next thing that we talked about was to solve one problem. In business, if you have a problem to solve this problem consistently, because you never know where this problem can lead you. Like it's literally like going through a maze. You never know what angle you're gonna find, what language you're gonna learn, what skill you're gonna develop. Like all these different things only come from when you solve that problem consistently. And over time, this consistent problem that's been solved will help you eventually have a profitable business. And last thing that we talked about is that you have to constantly improve. My goal is to always change, grow, and improve. To do that, I have to always look and see what's working and what's not working, and improve what's not working just as much as what's working, so what's working can be repeated. So this has been great. Let me know your biggest takeaway from doing the work in the comments. I'd love to read it. And if you haven't yet, hit that follow and subscribe, because these videos are so critical to help you develop within yourself, your business, and your future. I appreciate y'all. Failure is knowledge. Never be afraid to fail, because you are one failure away from changing your entire life. I appreciate y'all.